Where's the recording? You need to stop, pause the recording. It's somewhere around here.
Right.
It's right underneath of that is what it is.
Yeah.
See that? You click that and it'll.
Doug would have. Anyway, okay. So, are glad our, assistant president is doing well. He just went through pretty serious surgery and, yep, so.
I do have one thing. It's the thing I always say, if you guys have been more than once. This coming Monday is the Delta Beekeepers meeting. It starts at 6 now, remember. 3 months ago, it's changed from 6:30 to 6. And it's at Bill Heddle's Recreation Center. It's not at the IOOF where it used to be.
Cool. Anything else?
No, I'm doing great.
Okay.
Just tire out easy. That's why I haven't been able to make it to the meetings. I do plan on being in the meetings from now out till I get my knee replaced.
Right on. Okay. Yep.
May I add something to Tracy's thing?
Yeah.
It's the same thing we're talking about here, but it's a lot different. Like we'll talk about something and they talk about something totally different. So if you like just learning about these, it's really good to, Delta's only 35 minutes, 40 minutes away, so it's not, if you're just new into it, it's wonderful.
It's worth the drive, definitely.
Yeah, it's worth the drive. And then some of us, we actually carpool and go together, so.
Do they have it on Zoom?
No.
No.
It is not on Zoom.
Or not yet, anyway, I guess.
It has never been in the past. I know that it's not even in discussions. So,
Until
Okay.
tonight. Oh, right.
We're now that we're into June, the swarming is pretty much shut off. If you had a couple of colonies that were way behind and just now getting started up, you might have a couple that could, but for the most part, your the swarming issues are nil. But what you do need to be paying attention for is a colony getting honey bound. What that means is if they do not have room to put the honey in another location, they will start putting the honey in the brood nest. And so I hear this every year that people will tell me there were so many bees, and then a month and a half, 2 months later, they said, where'd they all go? I just have a couple of frames. There was just pouring out, and now there's hardly any bees at all. And I said, well, and that's the first thing this time of year I talk to them. Are they honey bound? And well, how do I tell? Well, you go in the middle frames, you go into the middle frames where the brood nest is, and do you see larvae in all stages of larvae and capped pupa, so capped brood? Do you see that? Or where in the center frames where the larvae should be, are they starting to fill those cells up with honey? And if they are, that means that you're running out of room. So this is the 7-10 rule. Have you heard of the 7-10 rule? Dun, dun, dun. Okay, 7-10 rule is out of your 10 frames, most of you are running a Langstroth 10 frame configuration, out of the 10 frames, if those bees have actively drawn out and are filling at least 7 frames, and you'll have 3 frames left that are they're starting to fill it out, but they haven't filled out the comb and haven't started putting it, then it's time to move up. It's time to give them either that second box or the super, depends on where you're at. If you just started with a Nook this year, hopefully you're already have that second box on. Now here's the situation that's so difficult, is because you can get too far ahead of them, and you will also cause them to be pushed backwards. You can say, well, I don't want to get into that place or they're honey bound, and so you give them too much room. And too much room is detrimental as well. Not as bad as not enough, but you can get, in other words, I had somebody that they started with a nook. They had a 5-frame nook, and they called me and said, my bees aren't doing hardly anything. And I said, well, send me a picture. So she sent me a picture. She had on that nook, she put both the brood boxes when she first got them, and 3 of the super boxes, and they were all blank comb. And there was not a single drawn, and they were still just milling around the bottom 2 boxes, but hadn't filled out anything. And she said, well, I think something's wrong with my bees. I said, well, they have way too much room. They have to cover all that room. And so it's not just room that they have to heat up. This time of year, they have to cool down. You'll see a weak hive that doesn't have all the frames filled out. You'll see them bearding and say, well, they must have too many bees in that box. Well, that is one reason why they beard. And beard is when all the bees come out of the box, out of the entrance, and then they run up the side and down the bottom, and there might be just this large patch of bees, and you think, well, wow, that hive is really strong. And you open the lid and you don't see anything. And the reason why is too hot. So they will beard when it's too hot, even though they don't have enough bees if they don't have enough bees to cover, or they don't have enough bees to begin their cooling. And what they'll do is they'll go get water, and they will actually produce their own evaporative cooler and to cool down their hive. But if they don't have enough numbers to do that, they will just all beard. And so that's the other thing. If you have too much room, they have to keep all of that air conditioned. And so when the bees are bearding, that means they're not working. They're not working the comb. They're not drawing out the comb. And so that's where the 7-10 rule comes into play. So you don't want too much room, but too much room is better than not enough, because if they start backfilling their brood nest, that brood nest now is full of honey, and there's no place for the queen to lay, and that next generation already is cut in half or 3/4, and so you're really, that beehive is what we call going backwards. Instead of growing, they're shrinking without enough room. So this is the time you have to be a beekeeper during this time of the year. So how many of you have lots of brand new comb that you need drawn out? A couple of you? How many have some old comb that you need to replace? Nod your head, yes. Yes, you do. I know you do. If you've been a beekeeper if you have comb that's older than 5 years, you need to start replacing it. If you have just nothing but blanks, so we're going to talk about both of those things on the best way to draw out comb, and not to go backwards. So I have let's start with a single, and I need to go to a double. So you got 7 frames. They're working on that 8th frame that's usually on the outside. And now I need to I need to work on expanding, but I don't want to expand too quick. Don't want to expand too much, but enough. And so if you have we're going to start with the scenario of blank. You're going to integrate blank frames onto a box that's already drawn out, ready to go, ready to be expanding. Okay, so what I do then is what I'm going to do, as I start from the outside in, this is usually going to be blank, because this is one of they always start from the center and work their way out. So the outside frames usually don't have much. They might have a little, but I'll set that aside. When I start, I usually start by taking 5 frames out of the one I'm going to expand to. So these are all blank. Now these are getting into my drawn comb. I think the best way to understand this is in the nucleus of this colony. In the center of the colony is your brood chambers. When you're expanding that second box, you need to make sure your brood chamber stays on top of each other. So whatever you have on the bottom, those as you go up, so brood on the bottom, brood on the top, right above it. You follow me? In other words, I'm not gonna get into, well, because I'm gonna move some of everything up. Not just, you can't throw on a total blank box of nothing and hope that they're gonna migrate up on their own. That you're a bee haver instead of a beekeeper when you do that. You just throwing up, they're gonna need some room, well, I'm giving them room, boom, I gave them room, I walked away, good luck, hope you make it. Chances are, this is foreign to them, this is all blank frames. They look at that above them like, we don't know what that is. And they will still pack out, they will still honey bound themselves. They'll pack out their brood chamber until they're forced, literally forced. So what you're doing is you want to give them the best case scenario of moving up and integrating to another box. And so therefore, you begin what we call a checkerboard. How many understand the checkerboard method? And I'm going to give you a little bit of a tweak on that and make sure that you don't ruin a hive. You can ruin a hive by checkerboarding the brood chamber excessively. Some people just say, well, 1 for 1 for 1, and they just say, well, I'm going to do, I'm going to take 5 frames out of this, put it in the new box, and then checkerboard everything. You will probably lose at least 3 frames, maybe even 4 frames of larvae doing that. In the heat, especially in the heat. And because they'll abandon those outside frames. They'll just leave them if they're all checkerboarded. In other words, you got 1 frame of comb that's drawn, and I'm going to put it there, and then just 1 for 1, 1 for 1, 1 for 1. To get them to come up and recognize that this is a place where we live. What you want to do is you take an outside frame. Now this should be honey. They're just drawing it out, and I'll put it 3 frames in. So my top 2 frames on my box that I'm expanding to are going to be blank. 3 frames in, I take that 3rd frame of drawn comb from the bottom right there. Okay, now I will checkerboard that one. I'll take one of my blanks. This is drawn, take that blank, place that right there. Now the next one that I'm pulling should be bee bread and or a start of maybe some larvae. This is how many I'm coming in. This is the 4th or the 3rd frame in. That's going to be, if it's really doing well, it's going to have some larvae, but on the backside, it's going to have some bee bread, some pollen. I'll place that there, right? Now, on that one there, so I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frames in here. Now that's bee bread. The same orientation I take out of here, especially if this does have some larva, I never want to abandon that larva by itself. In other words, surrounded by 2 blank frames. So this one in, on this side now, I'm on the 4th frame in, and this is definitely going to have larvae. I have bee bread. Why do I want to make sure larva's next? Open larva next to bee bread is because that is where the nurse bees are pulling their resources from. The nurse bees are pulling the resources from that bee bread, so it comes in right next to it, boom. That's larva, open larva right next to bee bread. And now I have 1 frame of larva there. Now, I should have at least 2 or 3 frames of drawn, and there'll be larvae there too. So now again, my orientation is gonna be one off because I started with three, right? I started with two and then the third one, then I checkerboard and then I have two that are drawn. Are you still with me on the configuration? I know I'm giving you a lot of information, but this is important, really important. So if I have 3 frames of brood, what I will do then, 3 frames of brood, I will leave them on the bottom. If I have 4 frames of brood, I will pull one more up, but I'll leave them on the bottom. Now, my orientation is going to be off a little because they're not directly above. I started with more, this is important. So I'm gonna pull all these frames on the bottom over. Take one of the blanks, put it on the outside, so that should give me 2 blanks on that side because there was one already. Right, because that was a 7-10 rule. They don't have those last 2 frames full, and so I pulled that over. Now my orientation is going to be almost spot on, maybe one off. Okay, on this side I have a frame of bee bread. If I have 2 frames of bee bread, I'm going to make sure that my larva is encapsulated with bee bread on both sides. In other words, they have bee bread on each side. And now I can fill in the bottom with blanks. There, blank, bee bread, blank, blank, blank. And I'll throw that blank again on that outside. We should have, so when I put this up here, it's not really important on the honey frames to be up right above each other, but it's real important to have your larva in above each other. And so and where does it need to be? In the middle. So larva's in the middle, and right above that larva is the larva that I just expanded to. So larva's on top of larva. You follow me? That is the best case scenario to expand. They will they won't skip a beat that way. They'll be up and then they'll move out. Now this is home. Now this is familiar. Now this is not foreign, and they will work out very quickly. They'll fill this top box much quicker than the bottom box. I have 5 frames in the bottom, 4 to 5 frames in the bottom, depends on how full it was. That is going to be brand new frames still down here. So what I want to do, in a week, 2 weeks, if I'm in a honey flow, they'll be filling this in real easy. But they're going to fill the top box up quicker than the bottom. It takes them a lot longer to draw out comb on the bottom box than the top. So what I will do, my next inspection, especially I'm looking in here, looking at the top, wow, they got all but 2 frames just in 2-3 weeks. They got all but 2 frames filled out with comb, and they are putting in honey, and it looks good. And I don't make the mistake by not checking the bottom. A lot of times I'll do that and say, well, just assuming they did the same on the bottom. They very seldom will do the same on the bottom. They fill out the top first. So what I'll do is, again, I'll set that aside now. I'll put this on the lid. My lid's down, and then this box. I never set this box down in the dirt, bottom down. If I don't have a lid, I'll set it on its side. That's fine, but you never want to put your comb. That's why we use the lid. You put that down on the lid. And so I look here, sure enough, there's still 4 frames down here that have not been filled out. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to take larva frames, but I'll take these outside honey frames that they filled, and I will swap them down. Take a couple of blanks. Here's another one on this side over here. Fill this one out here too, and so I'll come to the other side where they haven't filled in it, and make sure you checkerboard your frames. In other words, especially the honey frames, don't put the worst case scenario is 2 blanks together on the expansion. Sometimes you don't have a choice, because when you have 2 blanks together, the bee space is quadrupled in between. And a lot of times, instead of drawing it out this way, we'll draw it out this way. And wonky comb, and these are stuck together. How many understand wonky comb? Okay, it's not fun. And you have to scrape all that off because okay, girls, you're gonna start again. Do it right this time or out you go. And then if you checkerboard them back and forth, drawn comb, blank, drawn comb, blank. Again, try not to drop a empty inside the brood chamber. There is, as commercial beekeepers, we can evaluate a really, really strong hive and at times get away with dropping a brood frame next to dropping a blank inside the brood chamber, but we don't ever checkerboard. We might drop one if it's a really excessively strong hive and they have those genetics where they're just in a flow. That's the thing. It's got to be in a flow. They got to be a real strong hive, and you will set them back a little bit, but when I'm calling frames and it just looks really ugly. There's an old brood frame in there. It just doesn't look right. It's too dark. A lot of the cells are propolized. And I said, I got to get rid of that one. Even though it's got a lot of capped brood, but it looks bad. And I can tell, especially if that hive isn't advancing. That hive's not advancing. It just it seems like it never grows. There's plenty of capped brood. There's plenty of resources. There's bees, but it's not growing. It just kind of staying the same. Then I'm going to start looking very intently to the comb to see if there's issues with the comb. And I don't hesitate. Especially this time of year, I know I'm going to cost that hive some larvae, especially capped. And if I see any issues at all, in other words, I look in those cells and there's dried larvae that they abandoned, and now it's halfway there, but it's just dried up in the cell. That is a type of European foul brood, a type of foul brood, and it's not necessarily the full blown. There's 2 or 3 others that they're studying out there, and if there's any, or it could be chalk brood. Needless to say, neither one of those are any good. I pull that frame, and then I will give them new frames. If I have drawn comb, really pristine drawn comb, I'll help them out there, and also give them some super DFM just for gut health, and try to get them. And I'll give those resources, 2 or 3 times. 2 weeks later, I'll check on them, see how they're doing, if they rebounded, if the brood frames look good, and you can tell. Crack a lid and they're just lethargic. And those of you that only have a couple of hives, you can tell one is doing real good. You crack the other lid and they're not moving like they should be moving, like the other ones. The other ones are much more just the way that they're responding, just the way that they're flying. You look in one, there's plenty of bees, not absorbent amount of bees, but there's enough bees, but they're just not doing much. Start checking your especially brood frames or any frame, even if you have honey frames. This time of year, I have no qualm to pulling an old honey frame that doesn't look good and I'll just set it out there and I'll let them rob it out, but I get rid of it. I get rid of those frames. Don't let them, and that usually is the case. Usually that just turns it around. If not, there might be, and then you go to the next issue. Well, you start taking pictures, close pictures of those frames and send it to one of the officers, send it to someone in the group that has been beekeeping for a while, and they'll give you you text that to 10 different beekeepers and you receive 15 different answers. So that's usually how it goes.
2 questions from Zoom.
Okay, yep.
So the first one is, do you care where the queen is when you're checkerboarding?
No. She will migrate to where she needs to be.
Okay. The second one is it better to scrape wonky comb or just replace it with a new frame?
it depends how bad it is. Oftentimes, if I catch it in time and there's only just a couple of sections up and down, usually it's in strips, I will scrape that down both sides and then reorient it so they don't go back to the same one. So if it was like this, open it up, scrape it all out, and then I will change it so they have to start over, or try to get it to, instead of two blanks, try to find a drawn comb on one side and then set that frame in a place in the position of next to an already drawn comb frame, a frame that's drawn out, and that usually takes care of it.
The one that's not on here, but I'll ask it so that everybody else, if you have to set your box on the side, does it matter the orientation?
I mean, if you're setting it the box on its
Yeah,
side like this.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I know the answer, but I figured everybody else.
Okay, so if you're setting it on the side, you want to set it on the tall end and not on the short end like that. You know why? Because all your frames will smash together and you smash bees that way. Okay, so if you have to set it on the side, is that what you're after?
Yeah.
So you want to set it to where your frames are free hanging like that. Does that make sense? That's a good question. Thanks, man. You got anything you want to throw in there? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. First of all, just to explain it another way, because a lot of times how you understand something, if you don't understand it, explain it a different way. When he was talking about moving up to your second box and you're moving some brood up to here. Inside the box, when these are stacked on top of each other, you're going up, you've got 5 frames of brood most likely. What it's going to look like, these are brood frames in the bottom, and these are brood frames in the top, just to give you another visual of how that is. They're not over here, they're not over here, because that way all the brood is still together. It's only separated by that little bee space in between the top and the bottom box, okay? That's a good way for, the other thing is that the golden rule when you're rearranging anything to do with the bird's nest, you never leave one frame of brood by itself. There's always 2 together. So while you can checkerboard drawn comb, undrawn comb, drawn comb, when you get to the brood's nest, you need to have at least 2 together. Never leave one by itself. I think that was the only thing. Yeah, I just want to give you that other visual. Golden rule, do not leave one frame by itself.
And the importance of that is how a beehive raises their brood, and you're working with them. And again, like I said, they will abandon. I've seen that where there was a single brood frame all by itself, surrounded by blanks, and they just abandon it. If it wasn't strong enough, especially a weaker hive, will abandon that whole frame of brood by itself and go to work in another area. That's why going up, I always bring at least 2 frames of brood up, put them in the center, and then try to put bee bread. And if I don't have enough pollen frames, I will put at least a honey frame next to that. So it is, that brood frame isn't right next to a blank frame. Okay. And that's best case scenario. Now, if you don't have all that and all you do is a bunch of blanks, then yes, but at least they have, and you will see the very first frame that they fill out is a frame right next to a brood frame. That blank right next, that's the first one they'll fill out. Okay, any questions? Any more questions on that? Mm-hmm.
Can you review your, like, just go like blank, bee bread, brood, like just
Sure.
how you're, like how you, yeah.
Sure, okay. So, let's assume that this one has 8 frames filled out, okay? This one here, this, and I'm going to the second box. And we're talking about We're not talking about supers. We're talking about supers here in a minute. Talking about expanding from a single to a double. So what again? The bottom should have at least 4 frames of brood. Chances are that it's going to have 5 frames, and 2 of those frames are going to be half bee bred, half brood. So the center is going to be, but in a box that's ready to expand, it's going to have 4 frames, 4 to 5 frames of brood. Okay, I'm going to take 2 of those frames and bring them up, put them in the middle. Okay, I'm going to try to take the other resources that I have and surround those brood frames. I think so. Out of the 5 that I took, out of the 5 brood frames, I'm going to take 2 up. Okay, two brood frames. I'm going to set them in the middle. Right now, I took those, and then now the bottom, I'm going to make sure that the remaining brood frames are together. And the orientation is directly below and directly above. Now, the rest of the frames that I have left, I'm going to checkerboard. I think that's about the easiest way to explain all that. Yeah, the rest of the frames, not the brood frames, but the rest of the frames, I will checkerboard. So blank, drawn, blank, drawn, blank, drawn.
And you get done, both boxes are gonna look almost identical. You're gonna have 2 frames of brood in the middle, a frame of resources on the outside of those, and then be checkable.
I normally, if there's gonna be 1 or 2 frames more that are already drawn out, let's say an odd number, I'll leave the odd number down below of drawn resources. Because it takes them longer to draw out the bottom. Okay. Now, 90% of commercial guys use deeps for their supers. The reason why we do that is because our comb rotation.
Is too heavy.
You don't have to go to the gym after you pull honey, that's for sure. So they can be anywhere from 100, 110 pounds. So it's, especially if you're 6'7" high, it gets entertaining. Crushing pallets.
A lot of highs, don't you?
What's that?
You do a lot of highs with 6'7".
Yeah. I got 2 yards that are working on the 3rd box already, 3rd super. Yeah.
Holy snaky, that's good.
Yeah, we bumped into a pretty good flow, and so, if you don't have, this is the difficulty of supers on brand new super. So if you buy your supers off of Amazon and your frames do not have heavy wax, then you're going to want to wax your frames. You're going to want to, you're going to give them the best help possible to get up there. If you bought your frames from Daydant or Man Lake, they do have an option now. It better be is a little better. But I buy all my frames from either Acorn or Peerco. And both of those 2 companies, really, when they say it's double waxed or it's heavy waxed, it actually is. I've gotten the heavy wax from Man Lake and from Daydant, and it really wasn't. You couldn't see it, you couldn't feel it, and you can feel. I mean, I'll pass this around. Even though one side you really can't see it, but you can feel it. You can feel it, and you can see the wax on that frame. And so, if you don't have ability to do that, I know it's going to cost. It's going to cost a little bit more per frame. And you can buy just the plastic by itself. You buy the frames separately. Man Lake usually has the best frames. For a while, they kind of got crappy, but now they're back to pretty good. Decent. If you bought frames from me, it comes from Bennett Apiary, which they buy their woodenware from Man Lake, so it's same difference. You can buy just the frames and then buy your plastic foundation from Pure Cove or Acorn, heavy frame, heavy wax, and then you just snap them in yourself. It's real easy. It just takes you just a couple of minutes and they're ready to go. If you don't have that, you have these, or you have old equipment that's been scraped. You need to re-wax it. You need to put some wax on that old equipment that's been scraped down, because it'll take them forever to draw out foundation that's been scraped. And so you're just helping them out. And there's a couple ways to do that. Either you can, there's a couple people that they say it just works just as good if you just take that bar of wax and just rub it on real hard. I don't do that because I don't see it as even close to being the same as hot when you melt it down and then you get a paint roller, sponge roller, and roll it on. And that a strong hive will draw out a heavy wax frame, because they don't have to produce the wax. Because the wax is already there. That's the difference. Why we do that? If it's not there, they have to produce the wax themselves and then draw out the comb. If it's already on the frame, they just draw out the wax that's there. And a heavy waxed foundation, a strong beehive will draw that out in a week and fill it.
I've had proof of it.
Yeah, it really does make a difference. It is huge along those lines. So
Huge.
you're way ahead of the game. So again, then checkerboarding is the same thing on adding supers. You got some comb that's drawn out, you're expanding your apiary. You got a couple brand new boxes of comb that's not drawn out. So you just checkerboard it. Drawn, blank, drawn, blank, drawn, blank, drawn, blank. And so when do I checkerboard it? I wait for that super to be 3/4 filled. And they don't have to be capped. In fact, I usually don't wait for that honey to be capped before I put the next one on. Especially if I have a lot of comb to be drawn out. I will, and you'll see that they will start capping it, and you got 4 or 5 frames that are, they're drawing it out, they're starting to fill it up, and it's looking good. That's a 710 as well there too. And it doesn't have to be capped, but they're working it. That's the difference. So that's what you look at. Are the bees actually working that frame? Drawing out that comb and filling it. They don't have to have it capped before you go up and expand. In fact, I would suggest you don't wait for it to be capped, because then they are totally out of room and they're going back to the brood nest. So don't wait for that honey to be capped totally before you go up. But if 7 of those 10 frames are being worked, go ahead and go on up, especially in a honey flow. If you're in a place where, and how do I know that I'm in a honey flow? I'll take that frame of uncapped honey, and especially those in a lot of bees, I'll turn it over like this on its side above the frames. You want to do it because you don't want to lose our resources, and just shake it like this. I go down, and at the end I stop and come up just a little bit. It's the same way as I'm shaking bees off. I'm down, I stop and just come up a little bit. It's not a dead stop. It's boom. So I shake boom, 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 and that's same thing with the shaking that out. Boom, and then just once. I'll have to do just once, and if all that nectar runs out, falls out, and you're looking at the top of your frames, top bar of the frames is wet. That's a honey flow. You're in a flow right then. It looks, they're wet. You're looking at the comb, it's not capped, and it looks, you can see the honey in there. You shake it like that, nothing comes out. You're not in a honey flow. What you are is that's older honey that they're already starting to dehydrate. So, that's the easiest way to tell it. And the bees are flying heavy. How many understand, you've watched bees long enough, you know, when they're carrying nectar, when they're full of nectar, because they just don't go brrr right in the front door. They're boom, and they'll land on the door or on the ground, and then they'll take off again, try to get in. So that's a bee that's flying heavy. Bees that really don't have nothing, right in. They might have a little bit, but they're not. And so they're finding something, but it's not a really heavy nectar flow. We call that a drowner. You're in a drowner, and we've been in a couple of them this year. There's a couple yards that are doing real good. And it varies, depends on where you're at in town and what's going on. How to determine your nectar flow? You got something you want to jump in there, or?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Something about. This is for you folks who don't have any drawing. You've got large boxes, you've got a full hive, now you have a super, a medium box, all of it is blank. Number one, you're going to use a queen excluder. Don't put the queen excluder on when you first put this empty box on top of here. Okay, because then they don't want to come up here. Second of all, as he said, make sure these are waxed. Take some 1-to-1 sugar water, and you can either get good old Honeybee Healthy from one of the bee places, or you can get lemongrass, a little bit of lemongrass oil, and put it in some 1-to-1 sugar water and spray these frames and put them on. What's going to happen is they're going to smell that, and they're going to come up, and they're going to start licking all that sugar water off, and then they'll start building comb on this. Okay, but the first thing is, if you put the queen excluder on there, they're never going to come up into this purely indrawn comb. They're not. Give them 2 or 3 days. Once they start building comb on this, then you're going to put your queen excluder on. Now you might say, well, what if the queen comes up here and lays? They're blank frames. She's not going to go up on a blank frame and lay. Okay, so 2 to 3 days later, once they've started making comb, building comb in this box, it's theirs. It's their home. Like he was talking about earlier, they don't recognize it. Once they're building wax on here, they have decided that this is their home, and they're good with that. So first of all, no queen excluder. With the box on there, spray these down with your lemongrass water. Come back in about 3 days. They should be starting on like the middle 3 flat frames. Then you can put your queen excluder in there. If you have drawn comb, it's always better to checkerboard rather than do what I told you. That's only if you don't have any drawn comb. The way I like to do it is my middle 2 in a honey super are drawn comb, and then I checkerboard outwards from that. That just gives them something to get up here and get started on a little bit better, so that they decide it's their home a little quicker. That's all.
It's good. Those of you that are thinking that, I'm wondering if I should use an excluder. I don't use excluders for honey production at all. And out of 1,000 colonies every year, I might have 5 that run up and she'll lay. And I'm running deeps, and so it looks just like a brood chamber. The really, really strong ones, times they'll come up and lay a couple frames in the middle. It's not that odd. What I do though know, and I've done this many times because I've worked with a couple of guys that they were really proponents of queen excluders. In the same yard, run the same bees, the same strength, I'll produce more honey, because it also is a honey excluder, especially with the larger bees. The Saskies and the Golden Italians are a larger bee than some of the Carniolians. The Carnies are smaller, and so it really don't matter. bees will molt. I don't know if you know that, but bees molt up to 5 times in their lifetime. And every time they molt, they get bigger. And so the biggest bees out there are the workers, the foragers, and it does cause them a little, when they're trying to run through there in a full crop, it will hinder their running in and out. So I don't. Some people swear by them. I just swear at them. And that's the difference. Anyway, so you're the beekeeper. You make that decision whether you want to run an excluder or not. Some people do, and I don't. It's just one extra piece of equipment that I really have found that I don't need. I don't utilize. It doesn't make. I mean, again, out of 1,000 colonies, I get 5, 6. I've noticed that they'll run up, and that for me it doesn't. For you, if you're running the shallow super, yeah, you don't want those frames up in the shallows because it is a problem with wax moth. Wax moth will not lay in a super that has not had any. There's no pollen, or they haven't had brood in it. They just don't. It's not a problem. If there is any pollen in it, bee bread, then yeah, and that happens. You will see some of that, not as much. But again, that's for some of you that are, where your bees are at. I'm throwing the 3rd super on. So I'd much rather have honey and then deal with a couple frames of brood. That's just me. I'm greedy. I'm not, but I mean.
Would a top entrance help? Jason?
Is what?
Would a top entrance help?
Sure. There's a lot of people that do a top entrance and you'll see that you'll have this time of year, they'll even prefer a top entrance.
Okay.
So
Would it help them though? I mean, so they don't have to climb all the way
Yeah.
to the bottom of the top.
yeah, you'll see the difference there. Yeah, I will.
Mine have been going in and out of my top entrance because I don't know, I forgot to flip it over all winter. And so when they overwintered and I went to make sure everything was okay and I turned the entrance around, they still prefer to go in and out of the top and it drives me crazy.
Well,
Is that normal? Is that okay?
once a bee has found that entrance, that's where they're going to continue to go back, because that is how they have set their orientation of their hive. And so you can't just shut off the entrance and then force them to go. I don't have top entrances because it will also restrict the feeding of the larva, because now they got to go top down. And if they're going through a number of supers from the lid all the way down to get the pollen and the resources to the brood chamber, instead of just, and the way I do that, the way I get around, hey, okay, so what if you said 3 boxes? Well, that 4th box, that 5th box, that 6th box, you got bees that are going all the way up there. No, I don't do that. I gut super everything. Everything I do is called a gut super. In other words, let's say, okay, I'm 3rd box instead of, and all this is capped honey. I will take all that off and put the new one 3rd box. And all this is honey. And it's a lot of work.
Holy shit. Wait.
It's a lot of work, but I gut super everything because for that reason, they only have to go to the 3rd box instead of way up to the top. And so you say, well, they're only traveling this far. Yeah, that far. You won't notice a lot of difference on the 2nd, even the 3rd. With the 4th, 5th, and 6th, you'll notice a difference in production.
Okay.
So I got super everything.
Well, normally I always shut that off in the winter.
Your top entrance,
Yeah.
yeah. So top entrance, if you, I know, I work with guys that have top entrances. And it's 6 a dozen, 1/2, it doesn't really, it comes down to how you perceive it. And if you see a difference, then, there's guys, that one guy just bothered this Murphberry crunch out of me. He put his top entrance right in the handle hole.
Oh.
Right there. And so we're coming in and we're grabbing boxes. And there's bees there, and so you're thinking, man, I just got nailed with a sliver. No, you got stung. And then, why the bees? Oh, that's why his name was Bob Kendall, and Bob, you idiot, okay? Because he thought, well, that's a perfect place to put it. It's thinner, it's right there. He said, well, I said, Bob, why'd you do that? Well, he told me that. I said, well, why did you tell me? He said, well, I thought you'd see it. Okay, Bob, Anyway, so well, if you're gonna do a top entrance and you're gonna drill a little hole, don't do it in the handle, you do it somewhere in the middle or on the top, or there's some type, the excluder, and there's some telescoping lids that allow them to go up through. They usually don't do a lot of that just because it's too much for them to navigate, but if you have a hole in the box somewhere, just a 3/8, it's 3/8 1/2 inch. You don't want to do more than that, and they have a top entrance if you want to try that out. Some people say, yeah, I want to give that a whirl, see if that makes a difference. That's the great thing about it, because you can do all kinds of different things, do your own experiments, and see what works best for you, right?
Right.
It's not that, and I am giving to you, and this is important because if this is being recorded and we're posting this, I give to you what has worked for me. Again, I work with the guys that are 5th generation beekeepers. Their family's been beekeeping since the 1800s. And all that means is they've been doing things wrong for a long time. And so there's wealth of knowledge there, master beekeeping. There's a lot of great stuff there at the University of Montana. But what I found over the years is just what has worked for me. And so that's what I give to you. And not to say that you have to do this, you have to do it this way, do that way. And all of us will say the same thing. Everybody that's on the board, everybody that's been a beekeeping here for decades, all say the same thing. This is what worked for me. This is what I've seen that has been good. And I'm sharing this information, take it for what it's worth, give it a whirl. If it doesn't work, then, do what you found. Go back to the internet. And there's a 300,000 ways to do something, okay? And a lot of them are great, and some of them are just clickbait. And so anyway, any other questions on supering? Yeah.
So when if I have drawn comb already from last year, that I don't have to do the checkerboard thing.
Not,
right?
okay,
On a super.
no. What you're doing, what you're checkerboarding is if you want to, and you have more supers that you want to draw out. You've bought new equipment or you bought more equipment. And so that's the best way to do that. Instead of putting a box full of blanks,
Right.
you checkerboard it, and that encourages them and helps them draw that comb out properly. If the more double blanks you have together, chances are they're not going to draw that all perfectly. There's always going to be issues. And so if you have a drawn comb and a blank together, they already have the orientation of how to draw it out on one side, and that helps them. It draws that other side out so much easier. And very seldom do they mess that up, but there's some goofballs out there that don't matter what you can give them some perfect drawn comb from another colony, put it in there, and they'll mess it up. And that's all comes from the queen. All those genetics are from the queen. That again, down below, if you have in your brood chamber, I may have noticed that. Well, there is one hive that all the brood is just on one side. It's over here to the side, and on the other side is honey or bee bread. It's just on one side. And it's not, you see these pictures of, you know, beautiful wall to wall, top to bottom brood, you know, cap brood. It looks like chocolate chip cookie, you know, just beautiful looking. And my bees are retarded. What's the deal, you know? I don't know what the deal there. So basically it comes down to this, is that it's genetics. And so the only way that's going to change is the change of the queen. So you got to change the queen and all the bees will follow what happened going forward. Does that make sense? And a lot of people, all the temperament, how they respond, how they build honey, how they draw a comb, all that's genetics. And so you get a couple of those of you have multiple hives and you have a few queens, and these queens are they're getting old and then they're failing, and there's some issues that show up on a failing queen. So you just have to requeen and find somebody that has some really good queens.
My medium super is what I get used for my honey. And some of the ones I have like a 3/4 inch hole drilled, you know, like 3 inches down from the handle. And in the wintertime, I just take a line cord in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's a good way to do it. And it comes down to this, is that an upper entrance, oftentimes, and the reason why we always have that bottom entrance and it's normally on the bottom is because of how they feed and how they take care of the brood.
And I sit there in my chair and watch them, they eat both of them, the bottom and.
Yeah, and they will, but you know, you'll see this time of year, it's easier for the foragers to come in the top, especially if you got supers. They just, that's what they, but again, I produce a lot of honey and I don't have any upper entrances, and again, but I got super. And if as you go up, I guess if you got an upper entrance up there, then you wouldn't have to get super. You could just, drill that hole up there. Then you got to make sure you plug it. The wintertime, yeah. So that's good. Anybody else?
I've always thought it adds ventilation a little bit. I've been buying these, inner covers with a little notch in it.
Mhm.
And then, I put the notch down where it's right in the brood chamber there.
Mhm.
And then in the wintertime, I flip it up.
Yep.
So
It shuts it off.
the ventilation has to go through the center hole and then out that little bit. But it adds a little bit of ventilation that, I think is good.
Yeah, that's the design that way. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's designed that way. Yep. And it helps with a lot of different things. You got a little bit of extra ventilation. It also helps with excessive moisture because you have airflow.
And if snow kind of covered up the bottom entrance, they got a little hole, that
Sure.
gives a little edge like that too.
It would be nice to have snow. There used to be, back in the 80s, you've been here since then? We've had, we used to have White Christmas down here.
Well, I used to live up outside of Meeker and it would get,
Oh, yeah, well, that
it would be, half the days in January would be 20 below.
right.
But as long as you ventilated the hive, that'd be great out there.
Yeah, that's again, whatever you find is working. If you've overwintered your bees and you're being successful, then that's huge right there. So,
Yeah.
and we're just giving you a little bit of insight, information, how you can, the things that I know have proven time and again for years, decades, anyway. So you can use oxalic acid sponges with honey supers. That was a question that was asked to me multiple times. Can I use this with that? Yes. There is a number of things you cannot use. There's a number of treatments. Make sure if you're using Apivar, there's a number of treatments still you cannot use with honey supers on. And there are some that you use, you've got to wait a certain amount of time before you put a honey super on. So if you found you have a really bad mite problem, you need to do a quick knockdown, You have to take all that, that honey off. And say, well, I don't want to necessarily store that in a place where there's going to be mice or bugs or ants that get to it. You always put it on another hive. Make sure you get all the bees out of those honey supers, but you can throw it on another hive and they'll keep it nice and warm and clean and take care of it till the time expired, whatever. Always look at the label. As per directions, do what you're supposed to do in that mite treatment, and then you can return but oxalic acid sponges, and it's always the same. No matter how many boxes you got on top, oxalic acid sponges is always between the two brood chambers, right in the middle, in the center, oriented, perpendicular. We usually do 1, 2, 3, 4 inch apart, right in the center, between the two, and it's a great time right now. You should be refreshing your pads. If you did it in the spring, right now it's time to redo them. Okay? Time to refresh the pads. So if you're thinking of, and that's a great time to do it when you are expanding you're taking from 1 box to 2, or you're about ready to put on a honey super. Just scrape them off. Now here's also what I found is when you've put those sponges on the top frames, and as you scrape them off, that they have propolized the space between the frames right underneath the sponge. Okay, you need to do a little bit of house cleaning and scrape that propolis or that comb between the frames. So when you put it on, because it does affect the efficacy of the sponge if it is all plugged up because they will not migrate how they should. How the oxalic acid sponges work is the nurse bees, and that's why it's in the center between the boxes. The nurse bees are climbing up over, and as they travel over that oxalic acid sponge, that the oxalic acid is applied to their abdomen where the mites are. Okay, so if they are migrating all the way around and there's no longer avenues for them to go, well, you've just reduced the efficacy of the sponge. So do a little bit of house clean. I know it's hard. I know it takes a little bit of time, and you should try doing this with 1,000 colonies. I know it does take a little bit of time, but it is time well spent. And you have to be a beekeeper on this one. Yep.
So right now with the temperatures as hot as they are, as early as they are, I keep needing to get down into that chamber and change my pad, but I'm always afraid it's too hot.
In the 90s, you're fine. Remember, what is the brood chamber? What temperature? They keep it at 93.
Oh, my God.
They keep it at 93, 94, right in there.
So
And so if you're right in that temperature zone, you're fine. You're not going to cook the brood. So you're still fine. I would, we were thinking, well, man, we'll just hit it early in the morning because hit it when it's they're cranky. Boy, they've been cranky lately. Whoa, buddy, they've been cranky.
How early is early for you when you try it?
They'll tell me. I'll start at 7. If they don't like me, I'll go, okay, we're gonna get second breakfast like a hobbit, and then come back, and at 8, we'll see if they're okay. Sometimes I have to wait till, and sometimes you just suck it up and say, I don't have to drive on. But for people that have a dozen colonies and you just want to get through them, they'll let you know when you can start. Usually you got, when it's anything above 70, they're going. So I kind of look at that. 70, 80 degrees is no issue. All the workforce is going to be out 80 degrees by far. And so that's what you're avoiding. You're avoiding the old girls. They're not having it, especially if you're in a dearth. And it's been crazy because there've been it's either a drowner or nothing. It's either that, hey, we got so much coming in, we can't keep up, or you can't even drive into the yard and they're bouncing off the truck. So, last
I've
year.
noticed that too this year.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was.
It's been a different year.
Because it wasn't that, you know, it's, I don't know, a week or so ago, it was like nothing happened, and then today they were roaring.
Yeah.
But,
So if we get a little bit of moisture, we're supposed to get some Saturday, maybe. If we get a little bit of moisture, then it's gonna go back. And if our farmers are able to still irrigate throughout the year, there's a lot of ifs there. Then we're gonna be all right. We're gonna be all right, but. And right now they're talking about El Nino is really stacking up out in the Pacific, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. Yep.
Can you do vapor and sponges?
Yeah, any combination, vapor, dribble, sponges, any of those combinations fine at the same time. And it doesn't, it will not, you will. Vaporization, again, it's a quick knockdown, but it's only of the phoretic mites. All the mites that are encapsulated, the oxalic acid vaporization and the dribble does not penetrate the encapsulated mites. So that's why it's a quick knockdown, but it's only the mites that are not already in behind the cap group. So you get a high mite load, you can hit them, and I will do that if it's like excessively high. I'll hit them a couple times, and that does help. And then just call Gene, and he's got the vaporizer, and he's got so much time. He'd be happy to drive all the way. Anyway, I'm teasing. Just he's a good guy, and he's happy to help you if you can. Anybody else? Yeah.
I gotta ask you, you say you wanna do 2 deeps before you add a super?
Yes.
You did.
Yes.
Okay.
So the configuration of your beehive is always going to be 2 double deeps as the brood chambers. And then you want them, again, that's a 7-10 before you, so that 7-10 rule on those 2 brood chambers before you put a super on. Yep, you want them to fill that out. And so it does take a little bit of time, but know this, the reason why we say 2 double deeps, because that produces the amount of bees that you're going to need that's going to get you through the winter.
Okay.
There's some people that run a single deep, and they do pretty, especially in Canada. There's a lot of guys in Canada, like Ian Stepler Farms. He runs single, but he also overwinters all his colonies inside a temperature controlled building that maintains that 40 degrees all year round. So you can get away with, but in our climate, you cannot get away with single brood chamber.
Some people run 3 mediums too.
Yeah, there's
Some people,
I knew a guy who ran. I know.
The gentleman that made this system, Mr. Langstrom, he was a very smart man. He did a lot of things that we found out later by scientific experiments that were perfect. One of them is a swarm likes to move into a cavity that is approximately 9 liters. They found that by scientific research. 2 large boxes put together is 9 liters. Okay, he did a lot of things like that. He's just a smart man and just knew what he was doing. He put the entrance at the bottom because all the nutrients that came in here to get to a super, where did they have to go? Through the brood's nest, okay? Does 2 things. Your brood stays where it gets nutrition, but also you folks know that a forager bee doesn't come in and crawl all the way through the brood's nest up and deposit in the super. A forager comes in and lands, it goes inside and passes that nectar off to a house bee. And then that house bee starts coming up towards the supers, but it feeds bees along the way. Okay? And that, whatever makes it to the super might go through 3 or 4 bees before it ever gets up to the top. That makes for a very healthy hive because they're sharing gut bacteria from their honey crop. Also, your honey will be much more uniform because that bee might have been half full and then got half of a load from this other worker who was foraging on something else, and then it all got mixed together in their honey crop when they passed it off to somebody else. So that's why you put He was a smart man. He did a lot of really smart things.
Okay, so I need to buy a tea. Are you doing the sugar water still?
No,
What if you, okay, I've been beekeeper, I don't know if you call me that, for 2 weeks. And I. Okay, and I went into the hive one time by myself. And I bought one of those sugar, I don't know what they're called, they're like these plastic like, I don't know what they're called, but it holds like a gallon of sugar water.
Yeah.
Okay, I have one of those. So I went in there one time, but then like I got a lot of dead bees outside and I have to go in there again. And I am not quite sure.
go ahead and pull that feeder out.
If
If it's a frame feeder, it's inside the hive.
Yeah, I put it inside.
Okay, so yeah, just remove that frame feeder. You won't need it until end of October, November.
Even if it's new, I read something like if you have a new nuke, you're supposed to do it for 2 months.
No, they will have so much more forage coming in, and basically what you're doing is you need to fill those frames out with comb. So they need those 10 frames. That'll help that bee colony to be, like you said, to get to the capacity. So they won't need it.
Okay, the next thing is I live on the Mesa, so I don't know if that changes anything.
No,
I was wondering, is there anybody that you know lives up there that could maybe do an inspection with me so I know?
yes,
Top from bottom, left from right?
yeah. We're out on the Mesa.
I'm in Molina.
Okay, there's a guy that's fairly close.
Okay.
Well, there's,
He's not here again.
what's his name? Yeah,
Like,
The deaf guy. He's in Mesa.
I wouldn't send him. Want to help her, won't you?
I thought it was in Mesa.
Yeah,
Okay.
The way farther on the way to Vegas, like 2 miles east of Open.
Sanders did it.
You're thinking about Larry.
Yeah.
Larry. Well, there's a couple other guys that live, that have bees up there, have property, and they're up there. So I know there's a couple that would have no problem coming by and helping you. So talk to me afterwards and I'll give you their contact
And then
information.
that oxalic acid, I got the cardboard strips, is that, I think, I just stick them in?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
the same thing, right?
yes, and they're putting between the frames on those instead of on top. Follow the directions on those. And they're good, so. Good questions. All right. What to do when you go queenless?
No, that's it. That was me.
Okay, so, you know, here is the hard part about that, is that usually by the time you figured out that you're queenless, it's too late. And so when you're doing your inspection, you need to make sure you have all stages of larva. So you eggs, larva, pupa. So you got eggs, and a lot of people have a hard time seeing eggs. That's why I run all black foundation. So much easier to see a white egg on black foundation than yellow. And I don't know of anybody that makes white foundation anymore. They used to, and like forget that, that's might as well. Yellow is really difficult. Black is a little bit easier. So what you want to do, wherever the sun is, that to your back, and you hold this frame up where the sunlight is shining down into the bottom of that comb, that cell. And so you have to move it around, up and down, over around. And once you get it to where it is, the sunshine is shining directly into that cell, you'll be able to see the egg or not. It's a little bit easier. The older the comb is, the easier it is. Brand new comb is a little bit more difficult. But once you see the egg, and that's what you want. If you have an egg, you found eggs, you know that you've had a queen within the last 3 days. Okay? And so that you know your queen right. A queenless colony, they're a little more ornery. They sound different. There's usually a roar. They're easily perturbed. And that's not always the case. There's some hives that are queen right. They have a queen and they're just ornery. You just got an ornery hive. And the only way to fix that, requeen. You gotta requeen. So I got into my hive. There's no eggs. There's no larva, but there's capped brood. Again, so it's important for you to know the biology behind this so you can ascertain when was the last time I had a queen. So from egg to cap is how long?
9 days.
Depends, yeah, what's that?
21 days for
From egg to hatch.
egg to hatch.
From egg to cap,
9 days.
9 days, egg to cap. So if you have no eggs, but you have capped brood, but you don't know because from 9 to 21, you don't know how old that is, but you do know, well, it's within a few weeks. So if you still have capped brood, you still have an opportunity to introduce either a queen cell or a queen. So if you have a ability to buy a queen from someone or have it shipped within a few days, you're still okay. But what you need to do in the meantime, if you're going to do that, you're going to get a queen, you're going to order a queen. In the meantime, you need to find a frame of eggs from another colony, okay? What I like, the reason why is because you want to maintain that pheromone. Pheromones are so important in your colony. That queen mandibular pheromone is what causes that colony to maintain their understanding that we still either have a queen or we have ability to make a queen, and they won't go to laying worker. That's when a worker bee turns on her ovaries. She's unable to have fertilized eggs, but she doesn't and start laying eggs. Now, once a hive goes to a laying worker, it is virtually impossible. It is possible, but it's very difficult to turn that around. And to turn it around where that hive is going to be a proficient, strong hive. So the best, if you can't get a hold of a queen, you need to get a frame of eggs, not just larvae. I'm moving over a frame of larvae, another frame of capped brood, but open larvae. They can't, unless they're eggs, they usually cannot make their own queen. But so I'm going to have to see if they'll make a queen. I'm going to take a frame from another colony, a frame of eggs. What does it have to be eggs? Because they need to start drawing out that cell, that cell into a queen cell. And it takes them a couple days to begin to do that and to realize, hey, we have this opportunity. And so if you have this recently hatched egg, that 4-day-old larvae is just barely a comma, that's what they need. But by the time they get on that and begin to feed it what it needs to be fed, that royal gel, and it not just the royal gel that they give to workers, it is a super nutrified royal gel that they produce just for the queen. So that's why you need eggs. And you can save a colony by taking frame of eggs, and where you want to put that is in the center. You put that in the center of that brood chamber, and here's what you'll do. In 3 days, you come back, and then you can pull that frame out real carefully. In fact, what I do is I will pull not just one frame out from the end, I'll pull 2 frames out to make sure that I do not damage. And you still might, because oftentimes when they draw that queen cell out, it'll attach to the frames next to it. And so that's the difficulty of checking. What I'm doing is I'm checking to see if they have drawn out and they're starting to draw out a queen cell. And that's why I do it within 3 days, because you can still tell, but it doesn't, even if it's connected a little bit, it won't damage it so much where they can't fix it.
We're gonna do a 9 frame to 10 and just have a little extra room.
Yeah, you can, but those, yeah, so they won't bump up, and just give yourself a little bit extra room there. But if it's 3 days, they usually can fix. If I wait that full 7 days, then chances are when I pull that out, I can damage that queen cell that they're drawing out. So I just 3 days I'll know. 3 days I'll know. Yep, they see it. They're drawing it out. They're drawing out the queen cell, and so that's good. So if they're drawing out a queen cell, I'm going to put that back together. Boom, happy. Now, from that moment, when they're drawing out a queen cell, when will I check them again?
At least a month.
Okay, so again, that's why you need to know your biology. You need to know physiology of the queen. So from egg to hatch on a queen is how long? Anybody know? 16 days. So 16 days. But that was 3 days in, so that's another 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks, and then she's hatched. That's 2 weeks, okay? It takes up to 10 days for her to gain strength in her wing muscles. Up to 10, sometimes a little bit before then, up to 10 days, strengthen the wing muscles to grow into the place where she can fly, even to mate, to be able to mate. So it's for all intents and purposes, another 2 weeks. So that's a month for her even to fly. Now, the mating cycle takes place over, again, another 10 days to 2 weeks. So that, in that sense, in that stretch of time, she is mating. And then when she comes back from that mating flight, that over that time, she'll go up to 4 different mating flights, mate with up to 4 different drones in each mating flight. And then when she does come back, settle down, it often takes at least another week, sometimes 2 weeks, for her to begin to lay. So how many done the math? How many weeks is that? 6 weeks minimum before I'm going to dig into them and see if we're a queen right. Here's the problem. A virgin queen, if I dig into that she's hatched, I see that she's hatched, and I dig into that colony with a virgin queen before she's mated, before she's even flown, chances are they're going to kill her. They're going to ball any kind of stress that the colony goes through, they blame the queen. And they will ball and kill her. That has happened many times because I get too anxious. I got to see if we're all right. Got to see, and I write on all my lids on everything that is being requeened, especially my nooks, my mating nooks. I'll write that date on the lid. I won't touch it no matter what, because I know that I've doomed them if I start digging into them. So it's hard because but again, I have had 3 days, I've checked it, I've got queen cells, and so I'm going to let them do their thing. I'm not going to mess with them. I come back, that's 6 weeks later, pull that out. Hey, I've got eggs. I got a mated queen. I got eggs and larvae. So the next thing that I want to do, I'd like to see her, see what she looks like. Don't do that. You got eggs, let her do her thing. The next thing you can come back again from egg to cap. Capping on a worker is what? What's your biology? Anybody know? From egg to cap is not egg to hatch, egg to cat. 9 days. So I'm gonna wait, once I see eggs, I'll wait again, another 10 days, another even 2 weeks. I'll come back and then I'll look to see that same frame, because I'll mark the top of the frame. Hey, it's cat brood, it's all flat. That's the way I know it is. It's not drone brood. I know that she is mated, I know she's fertile, and it's all flat. It's not bumpy brood like a bunch of drones. It's all flat brood. Looks good. I got a queen, and I'm gonna look again. That's all I need to see. I don't need to find her. I don't need to do any digging. She's a young queen. And a young queen's gonna be flighty. Young queens are oftentimes and you don't want to cause any more stress than normal. That's all I need to see. I'm good. Let's go. Now that's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, I waited that 6 weeks, come back in, boom, nothing. So what happened? A kingbird, dragonfly, she got lost. She flew into another hive. They did not like her. Okay, what are you doing? There's a number of things that happened where she did not mate. She did not make it back. Number of reasons, or that's not always the case. She did make it back, or she didn't even go. Missed a window. Bad weather. That happens. So there's a number of things. So at that particular time, I need to know if my hive is gone to laying worker or not. So then I'll do the deep dive. You all know what a laying worker looks like. There's multiple eggs in each cell, multiple blows, and they're usually not a single egg right down the middle. They're usually to the side wall, and there's multiple eggs. That's a laying worker. Not a drone layer. There's a difference between a drone layer and a laying worker. A drone layer is a queen that is unfertilized queen. She lays that beautiful single egg, except it's not fertilized, and she lays nothing but drones. And it's either scenario that hive is not able to go forward. That hive is not able to make it, because there's no way for them to produce the next generation of. So I will go through and I will see if I don't find any eggs. I don't, and sometimes that they are just they're just dead set on not going further. There are some hives, no matter what you do. And so this is the moment that you got to decide, am I going to waste any more resources on this colony, or just understand that this one's done? I can spend more resources for every frame of brood. How many bees are on a frame of brood? Approximately, give or take, 5,000. That's like taking 5,000 bees from this one. 5,000 bees equals a frame and a half of honey production. So I'm taking not only bees, but I'm taking honey production of another colony and giving it to one that may or may not work, to give it another shot. Here's the problem with trying a second round. Okay, I'm going to take another frame of eggs, see if they can make it this time. Here's the problem. These bees are aged out. They're too old. Hypopharyngeal gland in their head that produces the royal gel for the workers, for that next generation, that shuts off. That diminishes considerably. Anywhere from 60 to 80% diminished on a bee that is a month. It's a little bit more than a month. If they are in and around close to that month and a half, and they are in the foraging mode, then their wax glands, their hypopharyngeal gland, a number of their other pheromone glands have all diminished greatly. Okay, and so especially the hypopharyngeal gland, and so therefore they don't have the ability themselves. They can turn it back on. It's at 20-30% of normal, but you got to remember, so that that same amount of bees, they don't have enough to cover. Let's say you dropped in a queen, you got a mated queen, and you put in that queen, but if you have nothing but old bees, they will not be able to produce that next generation quick enough to maintain even a double D. Basically, you have, let's say you're looking down, I have 10 frames that are full of bees, but if they're old bees, you are looking at how much that percentage of 10 frames. I'm only looking at 20% of 10. I'm looking at two, I might as well be a two framer trying to raise that next generation. Does that make sense? Does that compute? So, and that's a big if. So I'm taking resources. Sometimes when we get to that point in that place, you just got to say, well, let nature run its course, and they're not gonna. And I would much rather, here's what I would rather do. If I'm going to take resources, I'd rather take 2 or 3 frames of bees from a strong colony and start over with my own nook. Build my own nook with young bees instead of a box of old bees that are not even going to be around in another month. They have aged out and they're just going to die. Yeah.
Is there any danger of, say you had the weak hive, right, that wasn't doing well? That they have some disease or something that could transfer it to your good hive?
Yeah, you can,
You know,
and you got to be careful on, yeah. But usually in your apiary, the really bad diseases that are out there, the fungal and the viral, if they're that close, then they've already shared that anyway. You have what we call drift, bee drift. And so if this one's sick, those bees that are going out and coming back, you're going to have a number of them that come into other hives. They're that close. That happens a lot anyway. So if the European or those foul brood diseases and or the fungal issues that are out there, they're going to be sharing those things anyway in the same apiary. I'd be very cautious about taking somebody else's. I would go to their apiary myself and look at the bees and look at their comb and their larvae before I borrow anything from somebody else, and look at their equipment before I bring anything into my equipment. I'm very particular about that. And the reason why, because it's very easy, like you're thinking, like you know, very easily to destroy one from the other. So why is it weak? It's weak because either that queen timed out, she just got to the end of her age, and they weren't able to requeen themselves. Some have, they tried to requeen, and you'll see that they try to requeen, bad weather, bird, dragonfly, got lost, so the queen didn't make it back, and so I'm going to give them another shot. But yeah, giving resources one to another in the same yard, not a problem. Unless you know that, hey, this is weak because, hey, there's some problem with the comb. It just doesn't look right. And so normally I won't do anything with that one. If it looks bad, I'm not going to throw good resources after a bad colony trying to fix it. I'd be better off pulling that out completely, taking it to another location, shaking those bees out, removing that comb, that bad comb, and throwing it on burn pile and starting over brand new. If it's a sickness issue, whether it's viral or fungal. And that's a good point. But when I'm trying to save a colony, it all comes down to the age of the bees that I'm trying to save. If they're how old they are. And that you can tell how old they are. Basically you can the younger bees still have fuzz face. I call them no fuzz face, they're fuzzy. You know, that you can tell, it's easy once you've been doing this while, you can tell a nurse bee from a worker bee very easy, just how the hair on their body. The older they get, they start losing their hair. And the wings. The wings are telltale sign of the older bee, especially this time of year, they're flying themselves to death. So the old girls got tattered wings and the young bees and how they respond. You take out a frame, And all the workers, the foragers, they'll fly off. And especially you do a little shake, just a slight shake like that, nurse bees won't come off. Nurse bees, you almost gotta sweep the the real young ones, but just like that, all the foragers are gone, and that tells you real quick how many nurse bees you have, and you can tell by looking at them after a while. Yeah, I have plenty, and I still have some caproot. So I have some nurse bees that are gonna be hatching within that 2 week period. And I can help them out by giving them a frame or two, especially if I still have caproot. I'm gonna give them a frame or 2 frames of larvae and or eggs. And that's also going to help those numbers increase the younger bees. And so that it gives them best possible chance to requeen. Any other questions? So these are some things that's gonna happen. To many people, I get calls almost on a daily basis. Hey, do you have any queens? From the big boys in town to just the beekeepers, just backyard beekeepers. Hey, do you have any queens? Fortunately, I do not. Okay, we're using everything. There was a couple of bad specific things that took place earlier on the year, put all the queen production in the United States back 2 weeks, and a couple of them a month. Storms early in Hawaii, and then California's really struggled to keep up, or there's some issues in California as well, weather-wise, that has pushed queen production. So all the local queen guys they don't have anything extra, because we had to supplement our own, we didn't. The guys that I normally buy queens from 3 different queen producers, because I like to diversify my genetics from those 3, and nobody's had extra queens this year. I mean, you can buy 1 or 2, but you're gonna spend $60 to $80. Still, more than that? Wow. Okay. So that's you're spending more than $60, $80?
I had a guy call me for Chico, wanted me to see if we had any local queens. I currently call him back quick enough, but anyway, he told me spend over $100 to get one bee. So,
Well, after shipping, I suppose, yeah.
it's the shipping. Bee itself, I think, was $80, and then whatever for shipping.
So yeah, a frame of eggs, that's pretty easy. $100, that's pretty easy to do that, right? Okay. So anyway, any questions along the lines of requeening and knowing? So that's when you're looking, your inspection, you don't have to find the queen, you just have to find eggs. Yep. Okay, very good. So our next meeting, all of you should be coming back. Man, I got 5 supers of honey, jam-packed and camper. You'll be selling all your honey to local over there in Greeley, taking over truckloads, so. Very good, yeah.
We're gonna talk up to Doug about the times on the bee school for rifle. But.
Or you gotta make me look that up, huh?
Oh, for this weekend.
Yeah.
Oh, for the Colorado State.
Yeah, so everybody who volunteered, I talked to each one of you a little bit. I did send out an email, kind of split it up. Unfortunately, I had some stuff come up, so I won't be there personally. If you guys have any problem, you can probably work it out. But I think I got it set with everybody, not overworking anybody to be out there. So just check that email and see where I got you down for. But I think the meet and greet is it's Friday and pull that up here real quick. So yeah, I think it looks like either 3 or 4 is when the meet and greet's supposed to start.
3 or 4.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to think. Yeah. Okay, well, it looks like 4. And they're actually, we just got an email from CSBA saying that originally they'd asked for you guys to show up, that we're gonna help set up on Friday afternoon at 12:30, and she's saying now maybe 2 or 3 to show up to start helping set up. So it looks like 4 for the meet and greet, and then the next morning.
Time start 3?
4
It's gonna
to
start at
8.
4 to 8 is for the meet and greet.
No, what time to start up? No,
Oh, for you guys, between 2 and 3, for the people that are gonna help set up. And then in the morning, she didn't include all the times on there. There we go. Volunteers by 7. And yeah, unfortunately, the email just has the times for the volunteers.
Yeah, we just got that, so.
Yeah, and then the other thing, you know what, since I wasn't here when Jason was saying swarm season's over. The bees didn't get his memo.
Uh-oh.
I had a week and a half of nothing. In the last 2 days, I have had 7 calls.
Wow.
Now, only 2 of them were actually real swarms on the outside of buildings. The others have been cutouts. And for some reason, the Roaring Fork Valley is going nuts. They're all up anywhere between Aspen and Carbondale. And yeah, so we got 2 guys up there and they are just going like crazy trying to do these cutouts in these swarms. So if anybody's interested in heading up the valley, the next one I get, I will definitely let you know.
No.
Just let me know. Yeah. So, I mean, we've even got them as far as Vale. I had one come in Vale. No. But, you know, it's slowed down considerably from the peak, but it's still going occasionally. We had another one. We have one here. There's new construction going over on 25 and a half road. They had bees in the new house. They were moving in before it was even done. So, yeah, you got that one yesterday. Did you go back today and check it out? Okay. Because apparently there was another little small, the stragglers were back and they were asking about it. So I didn't know if you saw that message or not, but yeah, that one was a weird one because I sent somebody else out the day before and she could not find the queen. They were just flying everywhere. So she tried to spray them down with like some Bee Gone to get them to go away. They went away for a while and then the next morning they were back. And unfortunately
The swarm was underneath this fiberglass.
yeah, she said she pulled down the fiberglass.
She did?
Yeah. So I don't know, but you know, at least we got them. So it's still happening. It's very slow, but it's still happening. So yeah, well, hopefully.
I heard watching my don't swarm. There's another box. Don't swarm.
Other than that, I mean, traditionally, the July meeting is an ice cream social. Do we want to have a regular meeting or do we want to do the ice cream social again for next month? Because usually that's one of our least attended meetings because everybody's so busy.
Yeah, here, we're doing.
Yeah.
You wanna put out a questionnaire?
And yeah,
I like the ice cream social. Nice.
okay.
Cause we all just bring toppings or
Yep,
whatever.
we supply water and ice cream as the club and then everybody else brings toppings.
It's fine.
Okay. I think we'll plan on that and then we'll have, and then we'll do some minor.
Okay, so how many of you want chocolate?
There's
There's chocolate. What about vanilla?
Maybe wait.
Yeah.
Great.
Any other flavors you need us to pick up?
Now with all the toppings that are there.
Yeah, it's all the toppings. I just bring you chocolate and vanilla and then everybody brings toppings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Back to about my problem.
That's all I've got.
So the meet and greet is at 4 to 8.
4 to 8, yeah.
Maybe.
And I think Saturday starts at 8 for the general, or I mean, not volunteers, but the. Which class? I didn't know. Very good, the other conference is 8 every week.
So I'm on Friday. Good morning. Perfect.
Friday number.
Yeah, you and somebody just checked it.
We're on both days.
Oh, I don't know. I just checked. I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna cancel there, so it doesn't matter.
So is that it?
Yeah, we can check that.
I'll take over for dark in the hotel room, just to ride. Next. I forgot to buy a few.
Or my van.
Yeah.